Guys, this is my Hoya Carnosa Crimson Princess, and the difference between a Crimson Princess and a Crimson Queen is the Princess, the variegation or the white parts of it are the inside, and the Queen has them on the outline or the outside. That's the difference. If you've watched her first video of it, you know, she has grown quite some. I did trim her a lot. I trimmed her a lot, so she hasn't really grown as much that you can compare since I've gotten her. She's about a little over a year with me. And her current substrate or medium is orchid bark. I transplanted her a couple weeks ago, and she's in a self-watering pot right now. And the reason I use orchid bark, this is an experiment to this, is I ran out of pon for this particular pot, and I didn't have this size pot for a type of self-watering. I just didn't have all the stuff, but I wanted to experiment, so I already had this pot. I've had this pot for years. And so I thought, why not just give it a shot? If it's similar to an orchid, it's an epiphytic plant, then why not? My orchids are actually thriving in orchid bark and a self-watering pot. When I did take her out of her previous pot and medium, which was just soil, it was very dense and caked in, like it was packed in. It was like a brick. So it wasn't very difficult to take it apart. So there wasn't really, I would say, whenever you transplant, there's always going to be root damage. I would say probably the damage was like 2% or less. It was really that easy to do. So I was very fortunate with that because that's not always the case when you transplant. And I was very shocked that that was going to happen. So this is not how I usually keep the level in, and I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna explain this level. This is what it shows on how much water is in there, and this is what the recommendation is. And I would actually follow these, the recommendation. So I've had this kind of system for a really long time, like years. I've used it in different types of plants, and it can work for orchids. It cannot work for everything else. And I've also noticed it cannot work with any type of soil. If you use any type of soil, even though it's recommended by the company or companies of different self-watering pots, soil or coco coir, it will slowly kill the plant. That's my personal experience, so I do not recommend using that. What I do recommend is a chunky mix, or just either bark or rocks. That's the only thing I would recommend. And because I don't really have a ton of experience with other than pon, I would only recommend pon. Pon is a mixture of different types of rocks, and they have different functions, and they help each other with that. So I wouldn't recommend anything else other than those two different things, because I just don't have all the knowledge and experience to share with you guys. So that's why I won't be recommending anything that I've never tried, trial and error. So far in this, these are like I would say, I don't know, maybe over 10 different kinds of plants in here. I mean, yeah, in their own root system. Like I remember this one, the root system was like this much. Even that could have been one of those clippings that I did, and I just shoved it in there and combined them whenever they rooted. So the root system isn't really heavy. Some of these do have heavy root systems, and they're the ones that are actually thriving more. Because before I started the video, the water level was right here, and I actually added it a little bit more, and I thought I would add it in my video instead of draining the water. So the reason that I do not recommend this type of pot, I recommend the one where there is a liner that you can take off, because it's very easy to overwater the plant. It's very easy to add too much water in the pot, and that's just a personal preference. Some people are really great at it, that they never get to that. I am not. So I've learned that before, and what I usually do is I get a rag and I let it just soak and tip and soak the excess water, and that's it. It's just a little extra work. So for me, I don't really recommend it for that. But if you're one of those people that's like really like amazing using this kind of system, that you don't have to take the liner out for the self-watering, then this can be something for you. I actually really love the pot. That's why I never threw it out. It's just that sometimes, it's not every time. So let's just say 1 or 2 times out of like 20 times, I actually, you know, fill it a little too much. But for the most part, I really don't. That's why I really kept it. And they're not very cheap. But they're made really, really well. So, I mean, like I said, I've had this for so many years and I've never had any issues with crackings or anything like that. This used to come with a cover here, and the reason that I take it off is to help with the humidity and the moisture and to kind of air it out. I've noticed with my other one, the other version of the same brand of pot with this, is that I think if you haven't, I'll try to link it down below and above. It's with my orchid. And that one, I think, does help. That's why I don't keep the cover anymore, because it helps in the fact that it helps evaporate and the condensation becomes like humidity in a sense. And it helps the plants on the outside of it. And it also helps in the fact that the water isn't just sitting there for a very long time. So that's why I did that. Also, I would just like to add as well that I'm experimenting with my homemade foliar spray, and I've only had my Hoyas for a little over a year, and I've been getting kind of envious and desperate in a sense that I see a lot of people who are way more advanced in regards to Hoyas, and they've been rewarded with blooms and flowers, and none of mine have any of that. Some of them have, a lot of them, they've had it for years. Their weather is beautiful. They live in the tropics. They live in Florida. They live in California. I do not live in those kind of areas, so I have to compensate. And some people have been saying that, you know, living in an area that is not really California or Florida or in the tropics, or Australia, is that they've been experimenting with like foliar sprays, and a lot of people were saying that when they started using foliar sprays, it worked for them. Due my very, very short information about it, what I've noticed is that people are using foliar spray, but they're using the ones that help it grow. I don't really need that because for me, the Hoyas grow really well. Like I said, she's really tiny, or she's not very tall, or viney for me is because I actually have a second one of this, and I've just been giving her a haircut for, I would say, most of the time she's been with me. So she hasn't really grown that much because of that. And that's not her fault. That's because I kept trimming her to make her pot really full. Because when I first got her, she wasn't very lush or big. She was a little long, but she wasn't really like that. Not very long. So I just kept on clipping her and clipping her and clipping her, and kept on doing that to make the pot fuller. And that was it, because she came in like such a small pot and there wasn't really much. So that's what I did. So don't be shocked like, oh, it hasn't really grown. No, she has grown a ton, because she's one of 2 pots. Yeah. So, and they're very full. This is a very full pot. This is a giant pot, and this is completely full. So I've been doing the foliar spray. I'm not really sure if I will share what I use, because it's only been in the beginning phase, and I don't want people out there to start, you know, making their own and then blame me that their plant isn't doing so well. So I've been experimenting, and I'm currently on a different recipe. I've actually changed it from 1 to 2 now, to a second recipe is what I mean. And so far, my experiment, the plant hasn't died. So that's a big plus. The plant hasn't died. And because I've only been spraying for a short amount of time, I haven't really seen in regards to a flower yet. One person was saying that she got her first set of blooms after 2 months of making her own foliar spray, but she also has a greenhouse and a humidifier, and I don't have any of that. So what I am using different stuff versus what she's using, so we shall see how long it will take for me It could take a few extra weeks more, or we shall see, and I will try to update that. And I know I've been one of those like crazy plant parents that I just keep checking, but that's not a peduncle or an umbel. A peduncle or an umbel is what people refer to Hoya flowers. It's a cluster. So Hoyas they don't have like a typical bud system or a bud. It's a cluster, and it's called a peduncle or an umbel. It took me a while. Like, I didn't understand it for the longest time, and the reason for that is that I'm very new to Hoyas. Like I said, when I first got my first Hoya, I think within a month I acquired like a few of them, and one of them died, and that's when I hit the brakes, and I was terrified to get more Hoyas. And in a year, another one was deteriorating, my Wayeti, and I think you guys probably watched the video, like updated video on that. If not, it should be in my channel, and I'll try to link it up above and below as well. So I was really kind of traumatized with that, and then I started to just love them again after a year. After a year of trauma, of being traumatized because my La Carnosa died the next day after I got her. I bought it, I think private seller, and when she arrived, she looked fine. And the very next day when I woke up, it was dead, completely dead. So I was terrified. So I stopped, and I never really researched much. And I just kind of gave up on the Hoyas. I just gave up, and I just told myself they're gross. It's me telling myself to not encourage myself to look for more. So I did that, and when that happened, I just stopped. So basically, if I add my knowledge in regards to Hoyas, it's basically probably 2 months or less, or 3 months or less, collectively. Because all I did was pay attention to this and my other Carnosas. I have a Wayeti and a Pubicalix, and that was it. And those are really like easier to take care of. I'm not going to recommend a Wayeti to anybody that is new to Hoyas, because mine was dying. So I wouldn't recommend that. If you've never had a Hoya and you want to, dip your toes in there, I would say a Carnosa. Pubicalix is easy too, for me anyway. She's been easy, and that's it. But I would never recommend anybody getting into Hoyas if you've never had a Hoya. It's a different rabbit hole, and it's an obsession that is hard to really fill. So anyway, this is just an update, and I just wanted to vlog this for me and for anybody else that is interested. She sits in front of a west-facing window all year round. I never move her away from that. And if you guys are new to my channel, all my houseplants stay as houseplants. I never put them outside, because for me, it's a shock to put the plants outside, and it's going to be a shock to put them back inside in the fall, and it's just a lot of work. And I do have over 200 plants, and it's just a ton of work. It's a ton of work, and it's stressful, in my opinion, for me and the plant, because the plant will be stressed out, and they're going to start to feel a little off and get sickly and all that. And I'm not really, like, it will like stress me up. So I just don't do that. Some people do it, and they're really, really wonderful with it. I don't do that. So if you're one of those people similar to me, this is what I do. So west facing window, she's in a soft watering pot now. So what I'm going to do is, as soon as she hits the minimum, I'm going to add water. That's it. As soon as she hits the minimum, I'm actually going to, so this is what I'm going to do, because this is going to be the first time ever that I'm going to tap the water or refill the water. So as soon as she hits the minimum, what I'm going to do is check the leaves, if she needs to be refilled or not. If I can give it an extra day or two, I will, and I'll document that on my notes on what I should be doing. And the reason for that is I want to dry her out a little bit, but not too much, because Some of them really have very short root system, very small root system, so I don't want to overdo that. If she was a lot more established, I would say I could probably give her a few, like a couple of days. I have also noticed in self-watering pots that you can never just do a routine. It's very similar to just a regular pot. Like with my orchids right now, in the beginning, they always say when the plant is new, you want to give it an extra week to dry out. But what I've noticed is the bigger they got, the more, the longer they've been staying in those pots. What happened is that they've been kind of expecting the moisture constantly. So I remember I let it wait for a few days and the leaves were starting to wrinkle and yellow up. So you just got to really pay attention to the leaves. That's how the plants communicate with us, is with their leaves. So they'll tell us if they're thirsty, if you're giving them too much water and not enough light, too much light, things like that. So she's actually saying that she's getting a ton of light because she's turning pink. This is what's called like sun bleaching or light bleaching, which I don't really mind because it doesn't hurt the plant. It just turns pink. Some people don't really like that. Like this vine's turning pink. Some people don't like that and some people love it. So it's just a personal preference. This doesn't really technically hurt the plant. As long as she's not browning up, crisping up, dying, I'm fine with it. So there you go. I also, when I do mist my foliar spray, I do mist it right before I go to bed. And the reason that I do that is when you mist and it's going to hit the sun, there's a possibility of scorching the leaves, which is why this happened. But this was like last year. I tried to experiment with it. So just be aware of that. If your leaves are starting to have like dots, black dots, brown dots, and you have a humidifier next to it, or you're misting it or having a foliar spray, misting it maybe with just water, and let's just say it still has beads of water in there and it gets the light or the sunlight in an hour, then of course it's going to burn. And that's my personal experience. So if you guys are getting that too, that's probably why. I would suggest to mist and do all of that right before bed. That's what I usually do. For a west-facing window, like you can get away with like early morning. I've misted this one at like 7 and 8 in the morning, and it doesn't really get the direct sunlight until like 2 in the afternoon. So I can get away with that. And I've done it early in the morning and right before bed. I would not recommend it when the sunlight really does hit, and I never do, because I've already experienced that before. So here she is. If you guys have any questions, if you guys have anything you want to chit chat about this particular plant, self-watering system, hydroponics, semi-hydro, bark, pond, Hoyas, let me know down below in the comment section. I love hearing from you guys all the time, and everything that I'm using will be in the comment section as well. Also, all my social media comments are in the description section as well. So, I mean, everything is in the description section, I'm sorry, on what I'm using, everything that you see will be in the description section. And if you want to chit chat, comment section. Thank you guys so much, and I'll see you guys again next time. Bye.